They thought she'd stay quiet, that after everything they did to her, everything they did to her daughters and her people, she'd just accept it, just keep her head down and move on like it never happened. But that wasn't Boudicca. What they didn't understand was that they hadn't broken her. They'd lit a fire inside her. She wasn't the kind of queen who sat on a throne waiting for help. She was the kind who picked up the pieces and turned pain into power. And even though she came from a small tribe in a faraway land, she stood up to the most powerful empire in the world and nearly brought it crashing down. Back then, before Britain became Britain, the land was covered in forests and hills, with small tribes spread across the countryside. These tribes had their own ways of living. They farmed, hunted, built homes out of wood and mud, and worshipped the gods of the earth and sky. Boudicca was queen of one of those tribes, the Iceni. She lived with her husband, King Prasutagus, and their 2 daughters. They were respected in their land, known for being fair, strong, and proud. And though the Romans had already come into Britain, the Iceni had tried to keep peace with them. Rome was huge at the time, rich, organized, and always trying to take over more land. They had already conquered parts of Europe and wanted all of Britain too. Some tribes fought back right away and were crushed. Others, like the Iceni, tried to play it smart. Prasutagus agreed to work with Rome, hoping this would protect his people. He paid taxes, followed their rules, and even named the Roman emperor as part of his will, thinking it would keep things peaceful. But when he died, everything changed. Instead of respecting his wishes, Roman officials marched in and acted like they owned everything. They took land that wasn't theirs, grabbed whatever they wanted, and treated the Iceni like they were nothing. Then came the worst part. Boudicca tried to speak up, but the Romans didn't care. They saw her as just a woman, someone who should stay silent. So they tied her up, beat her in public, and made her an example. Then, in an act too cruel to fully describe, they hurt her daughters in a way no child should ever suffer. There were no consequences. No one stepped in to stop it. The message was clear: stay down, or it gets worse. For a while, Boudicca disappeared. No one saw her much. People whispered that she had gone into the woods to pray to the old gods, that she was calling on the spirits of her ancestors, that something inside her had changed. Maybe they were right, because when she came back, she wasn't just a queen anymore. She was a leader with a purpose. Her voice was stronger, her eyes sharper. She wasn't scared anymore. She was angry, and she was ready. She went from tribe to tribe, speaking to people who had also been hurt by Rome. She told them what had happened to her. She told them how the Romans treated their women, their children, their land. And everywhere she went, people started to listen. Because they weren't just angry for her, they were angry for themselves too. The pain had been building for years. Boudicca just gave it a voice. Slowly, tribes began to join her. First the Trinovantes, then others. Soon, what started as one woman's rebellion turned into something much bigger. And the amazing thing? They chose her to lead, a woman. In a time when most people thought only men could be in charge of anything important, here she was, at the front of an army. And she wasn't leading from the back. She rode a chariot with her daughters beside her, standing tall in front of thousands of warriors. She didn't just ask them to fight, she showed them how. The first place they attacked was Camulodunum. Today it's known as Colchester. It was a Roman town, full of soldiers and people who had settled there under Roman protection. Boudicca and her army came in fast. They burned the buildings, tore down the statues, destroyed the temple that had been built to honor the Roman emperor. It was clear, this was no small protest. This was war. Word of the attack spread fast, but the Romans weren't ready. Their governor, a man named Suetonius, was off fighting somewhere else. No one had expected Boudicca to strike. By the time Suetonius heard what was happening, she had already moved on. Her next target? Londinium. That's right, London. At the time, Londinium was just a small Roman trading post, but even then, it was important. Suetonius rushed there with his troops, hoping to stop her. But when he saw how big her army had become, he panicked. He left. He told the people to evacuate and ran with his soldiers. That decision left the city wide open. Boudicca didn't hesitate. Her warriors moved in and set fire to the buildings. They destroyed Roman homes and army stations. Anyone who stayed behind and supported Rome was attacked. It was another big win. The fire from the city could be seen for miles. And once again, Boudicca had proved that she wasn't just making noise. She was changing everything. By now, Boudicca's army might have grown to over 100,000 people. Think about that. From a mother who had lost everything to a commander of thousands. And not just fighters, families too. People followed her because they believed in what she stood for. She didn't promise gold. She didn't promise land. She promised something more important: freedom. Next came Verulamium, which is now called St. Albans, another Roman town. And again, Boudicca's army took it down. In just a short time, she had destroyed 3 major Roman cities. The Roman Empire, which had taken over huge parts of the world, was being shaken by a woman they had once beaten and ignored. But the Romans weren't going to let her keep winning. Suetonius gathered every soldier he could find. He found a place to fight that gave his side the best chance: a narrow valley with trees on both sides. That way, Boudicca's big army couldn't surround them. It was a smart move. Boudicca came with everything she had: warriors, families, wagons full of people who wanted to see the end of Roman rule. She stood in front of them all, her daughters beside her. She wasn't yelling. She wasn't crying. She was calm, clear, and powerful. She said something simple but unforgettable. "I'm a woman, and I lead because I must. I'm fighting for justice." Her words hit harder than any weapon. Then the final battle began. Her army charged, but the Romans held their ground. They stayed in tight lines, with shields locked and swords ready. They waited until the Britons got close, then pushed forward together. It was brutal. Boudicca's fighters were brave, but they weren't trained like Roman soldiers. And when they tried to run, the wagons behind them blocked their path. The field turned into chaos. Thousands were lost. Boudicca didn't win that day. Her army was crushed. Rome took back control. And just like that, the biggest uprising Britain had ever seen was over. As for Boudicca, no one knows exactly what happened. Some say she took poison so she wouldn't be captured. Others believe she escaped and lived out the rest of her life quietly. Her ending is a mystery, but her story isn't. Because even though she lost the battle, she won something else. She proved that women could lead, that someone who had been hurt so deeply could still rise up. She stood for her daughters. She stood for her people. And even when everything fell apart, she never gave in. The Romans rebuilt their cities, but they never forgot her name. Hundreds of years later, statues of Boudicca were raised in her honor. People wrote books about her. She became a legend, not just in Britain, but around the world. And what made her special wasn't magic or power or money. It was heart. It was strength. It was her decision to stand up when she could have stayed down. That's something anyone can do. Boudicca didn't just survive. She fought back. She stood tall. She made the most powerful men in the world listen to her, even when they didn't want to. And she did it with nothing but her courage and her voice. She did it